When one of Hollywood's most esteemed actresses walked onto what she assumed would be a cordial interview, she had no idea she was stepping into a trap set by a host nursing a personal grudge. The incident erupted into a heated confrontation that saw Nicole Kidman abruptly leave the set of The View, leaving Joy Behar stunned and the live audience stunned into silence. The stage was set with the studio lights bright and unyielding, Nicole settling gracefully into her chair, radiating her usual poise even as casual conversation flowed. She had arrived to discuss her latest film, anticipating the standard blend of career-focused questions and lighthearted banter that she had encountered countless times throughout her television career. What she did not know was that Behar had devoted the morning to digging through past interviews, intent on finding material to challenge and provoke her guest. The segment began with a warm introduction. "Welcome back to The View. I'm Joy Behar, and we have with us the extraordinarily talented Nicole Kidman." Behar's smile did not quite reach her eyes, and Nicole responded politely, completely unaware of the tension building behind the facade. Early conversation proceeded as expected, centering on Nicole's film, her approach to preparing for her role, and her experiences on set with the director. Yet subtle shifts in Behar's posture and the increasingly pointed nature of her questions hinted at the storm about to break. "You know, Nicole," Behar said, leaning in with what could only be described as predatory focus, "I was reviewing some of your past interviews. You've often been very outspoken about your political views, haven't you?" Nicole's polite smile wavered as she sensed the change in tone. "I believe it's important for people to stay engaged with the world," she replied carefully. "Yes, but surely you don't just set your opinions aside when it suits you." Behar pressed, her voice sharp enough to make the audience shift uneasily in their seats. "You've made some very strong statements about certain political figures." Nicole maintained her composure, emphasizing that her presence was to discuss her film. "I think people would be more interested in hearing about the story we're telling," she said, attempting to steer the conversation back on track. Behar's response was incisive and calculated. "The audience can decide what they want to hear, can't they? I'm just curious about your tendency to speak out, and then retreat when asked to discuss your views in detail." The other hosts exchanged uneasy glances, recognizing that Behar had abandoned the script and was treading into potentially perilous territory. Attempts to redirect the conversation failed, with Behar insisting, "Nicole, a few years ago, you made comments about how the entertainment industry handles certain issues. Do you still stand by those remarks, or was that just another example of Hollywood virtue signaling?" Nicole's jaw tightened subtly. "I'm not sure which comments you mean, but I've always tried to speak honestly about issues I care about," she replied cautiously. Behar, undeterred, escalated the interrogation. "Come on, Nicole. You criticize the industry for inaction, yet when it counts you're collecting your paychecks and staying silent." The studio fell into a tense silence, punctuated only by the hum of cameras. Nicole drew a steadying breath, clearly fighting to remain professional. "I've always supported causes I believe in," she said, her tone firm but strained. "Consistently." Behar countered, her words dripping with irony. "It seems you pick and choose when to have a conscience based on what benefits your career." Nicole's composure cracked for the first time. "I will not sit here and have my integrity questioned based on a distorted reading of past statements," she said sharply. Behar leaned back, a smirk revealing her satisfaction. "I'm simply pointing out inconsistencies. Isn't that what journalism is supposed to do?" "Journalism?" Nicole's voice was incredulous. "Is this what you call journalism? I came here to discuss my work, not to be ambushed for something that doesn't exist." Behar's veneer of civility had slipped, her intent clear. "Controversy? If asking tough questions counts as controversy, perhaps you aren't as committed to your principles as you claim." The tension in the room was almost tangible. Camera operators continued filming, uncertain whether to cut or let the confrontation unfold. Nicole's hands clenched in her lap, knuckles pale from the effort of maintaining her restraint. "You know what, Joy? I've done interviews for over 30 years. I know the difference between rigorous questioning and a personal attack. This isn't journalism. It's a hit job," she said, her tone cold and unwavering. Behar's eyes gleamed with vindictive delight. "A hit job. Perhaps the problem isn't my questions but your inability to be accountable for your words." "For what exactly?" Nicole demanded, her calm beginning to fracture. "For having opinions, for caring about important matters, for refusing to be the compliant figure you expected." The audience sat frozen, fully aware they were witnessing an extraordinary clash between two powerful women in entertainment. Behar leaned forward, emboldened by Nicole's visible agitation. "So now I'm the villain for asking you to clarify your contradictions." "That's rich," she said. Nicole's patience vanished entirely. "What contradictions? You keep throwing vague accusations without specifics. If you have something to say, speak clearly instead of hiding behind insinuations." Behar's smile turned venomous. Fine. Let's discuss specifics. 3 years ago you criticized actors for remaining silent on significant issues, saying their inaction made them complicit. The studio was engulfed in silence. Every eye was fixed on the two women, the tension electric as the conversation escalated beyond normal interview territory, leaving an indelible moment of raw confrontation in live television history. When the topic shifted to the controversy surrounding her production company's investors, Nicole Kidman's expression momentarily drained of color, yet her voice remained measured and controlled. That situation was entirely different, she said firmly. Legal proceedings were involved, and commenting could have interfered with ongoing investigations. Joyce's response was laced with derision. Oh, how convenient, she scoffed, emphasizing the phrase with a sneer. Legal proceedings. The perfect excuse for selective activism. Tell me, Nicole, how do you sleep at night knowing you profited from those investments while publicly lecturing others about ethics and responsibility? The other hosts appeared visibly uneasy. Sonny attempted to redirect the conversation with a gentle suggestion. Maybe we could focus on Nicole's charitable initiatives instead. But Joyce dismissed her with a flick of her hand, refusing to relent. No, Sonny. I believe the audience deserves to hear Nicole clarify how she reconciles her public statements with her private business affairs. Isn't that reasonable, Nicole? Nicole's patience was fraying. Joy, what you're doing is exactly what's wrong with media today, she said, her tone firm but controlled. You're taking nuanced situations, stripping away all context, and presenting them as clear, cut moral failings. It's misleading and it's beneath both of us. Beneath you. Joyce's voice rose sharply, teetering on a shout. I'm not the one who built a career portraying the virtuous leading lady while conducting private deals that contradict everything I claim to stand for. At least I'm upfront about who I am. Upfront? Nicole's laugh was bitter, cutting through the tension in the studio. You call this honesty? You lured me here under false pretenses, crafted this attack in advance, and never gave me a fair chance to respond. Now you sit there as if you're some righteous crusader. This isn't integrity, Joyce. It's cowardice. The word struck the air like a whip, and Joyce's face turned a deep shade of red. Cowardice. Did you just call me cowardly? I've been confronting the hard truths in this industry far longer than you've been appearing on camera, darling. Don't patronize me. Nicole's anger surfaced fully, her composure slipping. I've spent my entire career striving to be taken seriously, both as an artist and as a person. I won't sit here while you attempt to dismantle that with tabloid tactics disguised as journalism. The Joyce rose from her chair, finger pointed accusingly. Tabloid journalism. I'm exposing the hypocrisy of Hollywood elites who lecture ordinary people on morality, while secretly living by completely different standards. That's authentic journalism, Nicole, not the fantasy world you inhabit. Nicole remained seated, but her voice cut sharply through the tension. The only fantasy here is your belief that what you're doing serves any purpose beyond inflating your ego. You're not revealing anything, Joyce. You're merely bullying someone who can't strike back with the same force you can. Joyce's laughter was harsh and taunting. Oh, come on. You're worth hundreds of millions, you have entire teams of publicists and lawyers. And yet you want to play the victim. Give me a break. Money doesn't shield one from character assassination, Nicole replied icily. That is precisely what this is. You've taken speculation, rumor, and partial truths and presented them as facts to ambush someone who came here with honest intentions. That isn't an attempt to destroy character, what is? Joyce's facade slipped entirely, revealing raw hostility. Accountability, Nicole. Something you're evidently unaccustomed to. In the real world, people are responsible for their actions and choices. They don't get to hide behind fame or a carefully constructed public image. Nicole's gaze was unwavering, her voice steady but icy. There's a difference between accountability and orchestrating an ambush under the guise of tough questioning. You're twisting narratives to score points, not seeking the truth. That's not accountability. That's exploitation. Joyce leaned closer, her tone sharp, her expression filled with vindictive intensity. You can defend yourself all you like, Nicole, but the public deserves to hear the contradictions in your statements versus your actions. You can't expect to lecture on morality without scrutiny. Nicole's patience had evaporated entirely. Scrutiny isn't what you're offering, she said, her voice cutting like glass. You planned this attack, cherry-picked information and manipulated context to trap me. That's harassment, not journalism, and the irony is that you're pretending to champion honesty while demonstrating none yourself. The studio was suffused with tension, cameras capturing every minute of the confrontation. The audience sat in stunned silence, aware they were witnessing an extraordinary clash between two formidable women. Nicole's composure, tested to the brink, contrasted sharply with Joyce's aggressive posture, creating an atmosphere thick with conflict and raw emotion. You can frame it however you like, Nicole said, her tone firm and unyielding. But what you're doing is coercion disguised as inquiry, designed to humiliate rather than enlighten. That's not accountability, Joyce. That's exploitation of influence and power. Joyce's lips curled into a smirk, the challenge evident in her eyes. Power and influence. Those are tools for those willing to use them, Nicole. You have them, but you hide behind them while expecting immunity from criticism. That's not strength. That's arrogance. Nicole's response was precise, deliberate, and resolute. Arrogance is assuming your audience is naive enough to equate ambushes with truth. You're not holding me accountable. You're staging a spectacle to inflate your own status at my expense. That's the difference between journalism and theater, Joyce. You're performing, not reporting. Joyce's expression hardened, but Nicole's stance remained firm. The room felt suspended in the friction between integrity and provocation, the clash of professional pride against relentless scrutiny. Every word between them sharpened the divide, laying bare the tension between celebrity morality and media tactics, a confrontation etched into the memory of everyone present. Accountability. Nicole Kidman's voice carried disbelief and controlled intensity. You haven't posed a single genuine question since this began. You've leveled accusations, insinuated wrongdoing without proof, and twisted my past remarks to fit a narrative you constructed before I even arrived. That's not accountability. That's a targeted hit. The studio was eerily silent, the audience shifting uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the weight of a confrontation far beyond the usual celebrity interview. The camera operators continued rolling, aware they were capturing a moment that would be replayed and discussed for years. Joyce sat back but maintained a confrontational stance. A hit piece. I'm sorry that holding you accountable for your own words feels aggressive. Maybe that should make you reconsider your so-called standards. My standards. Nicole's tone dropped to a low, dangerous calm. Joy, what standards are you claiming I'm failing to uphold that you don't hold yourself to? When was the last time you admitted an error, or apologized for misrepresenting someone's statements? You sit behind that desk every day passing judgment, yet never examine your own conduct with the same scrutiny. Joyce's eyes narrowed, the challenge clear. Don't try to flip this on me, Nicole. I'm not the one inconsistent. I didn't build a career portraying the wholesome starlet while quietly making deals with questionable figures behind the scenes. Questionable figures. Nicole's voice rose sharply. Joy, are you seriously making vague, unsubstantiated accusations about my professional relationships without citing a single example? That's not journalism, that's gossip, pure and simple. Diminishes what this show once stood for. The other hosts exchanged frantic glances toward the producers, silently pleading for intervention. But Joyce remained relentless, fully entrenched in her assault. This show represents the pursuit of truth, Nicole. Something you appear to struggle with. We don't simply nod along when celebrities appear to promote projects. We dig into real issues, ask substantive questions. Nicole rose from her chair, exhaustion and frustration finally breaking through her calm veneer. Joy, you haven't asked one authentic question. You've launched accusations disguised as inquiry. There's a difference, and if you can't recognize it, perhaps you shouldn't be in this chair. Joy shot to her feet, face flushed with anger. Don't you dare tell me how to do my job! I've hosted shows longer than you've been a household name. I don't need advice from someone who thinks being attractive qualifies as having valid opinions. Nicole's eyes flashed with fury. Attractive? You think this is about looks? I've spent over 30 years in this industry producing films, advocating for women's rights both on and off screen, and using my platform to support causes I believe in. If you reduce all of that to being pretty, you're far more superficial than I imagined. Joyce's voice shook with rage. Superficial? You married a country music star for publicity, and then spun it as a great love story when everyone knew it was strategic. The studio gasped at the personal nature of the attack, the other hosts visibly stunned by the venomous turn of the interview. Nicole's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. No, you're dragging my personal life into this. My marriage. That's entirely off limits, and you know it. What kind of journalist attacks someone's family? Instead of retreating, Joyce doubled down. I'm illustrating a pattern, Nicole. Everything you do seems meticulously calculated for public approval. Your marriages, your children, political statements, even charitable work. It's all curated. My children? Nicole's tone was icy. You dare question my relationship with my children? I don't care about any professional disagreements you might have with me. But if you intend to attack my family, you are profoundly mistaken. The other hosts attempted frantically to intervene with gestures and whispered urgencies, but Joyce pressed on. You claim to value privacy, yet you expertly leverage your personal life for publicity when convenient. Nicole stepped closer, composure fully shattered. You want to know what suits me, Joyce? It's not sitting here while a bitter, Washed-up talk show host hurls cheap attacks at my family out of jealousy over my success. Is that really what this is? Professional envy? Joyce laughed hysterically. Envy of what? Your staged marriages, your contrived image, your ability to convince people you're something you're not. Trust me, Nicole, there's nothing about your life I admire. Then why this obsession with dismantling it? Nicole demanded. You've spent the entire interview attempting to ruin my reputation based on speculation and gossip. If not jealousy, what fuels this vindictiveness? Joyce's mask finally fell away, revealing unfiltered animosity. You make me sick. You parade around like you're superior, like you have all the answers, yet beneath it all, you're as artificial and calculating as any other Hollywood phony. At least I'm honest about being difficult. Honest about being difficult, Nicole repeated incredulously. Joy, do you hear yourself? You just admitted this entire assault is rooted in personal animosity, not journalistic principle. You ambushed me because of personal dislike. The studio was silent except for the relentless click of cameras documenting the extraordinary meltdown. Whoopi attempted one final intervention. Ladies, maybe we should take a break. Nicole cut her off sharply. No. I'm not taking a break. I'm done. Nicole Kidman's voice rang out across the studio, sharp and controlled. Joy, today you've shown everyone watching exactly who you are. You've made it clear that you're willing to abandon every principle of professional integrity to settle a personal grudge that exists only in your own mind. Joyce's face had turned a deep shade of purple with fury. Get off your high horse, Nicole. You think you can lecture me about ethics? You who have built a career on manipulation and deceit? What lies? What manipulation? Nicole's tone was cutting now, her patience worn thin. Joy, you keep throwing around accusations without presenting a shred of evidence. You launch insults and hope something sticks. That is not journalism. It's just pathetic. Pathetic. Joyce screamed, her voice nearly breaking with rage. You want to know what's pathetic? Watching the country fall for your act year after year. Watching someone with no real talent be handed everything because of how they look. Someone who can strut through life and get what they want because of a carefully manufactured image. Nicole shook her head in disbelief. You know what, Joyce? I came here today expecting a professional discussion about my work. Instead, I walked straight into a setup orchestrated by someone clearly consumed by personal issues. I will not dignify this circus with my participation any longer. She began to remove her microphone, deliberate and decisive in every motion. Joyce panicked, sensing her control over the interview slipping. Running away, Nicole. That's typical. When things get difficult, you just disappear. Nicole turned to face her one final time, her gaze unwavering. I'm not running away from anything. I am stepping away from a toxic situation created by someone who has completely abandoned professional standards. The viewers at home can decide for themselves who appeared credible today. Credible. Joyce's voice took on a desperate edge. You couldn't even answer simple questions about your own contradictions. Nicole laughed bitterly. Simple questions. You didn't ask questions, Joyce. You made accusations. You insulted my family. You questioned my integrity without a single piece of evidence. And you just admitted this attack was motivated by personal dislike. That isn't an interview. It's character assassination, and I refuse to participate any longer. She handed the microphone to a stunned production assistant and strode toward the exit, her movements precise and commanding. Joyce made one last desperate effort to regain control. This is exactly what I mean. When confronted with the truth, you just walk away. Nicole paused at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. The truth, Joyce. The truth is visible to everyone watching. They saw a professional actress come on a talk show to promote her work. And they saw a host attack her personally for reasons that had nothing to do with journalism, and everything to do with personal animosity. The audience can judge for themselves who acted with integrity today. With that, Nicole walked off the set, leaving Joyce standing alone, flushed, and visibly shaken by how badly she had miscalculated the situation. The other hosts remained frozen in silence, unable to recover from the intensity of what had just unfolded. The audience sat stunned, their expressions reflecting the shock and disbelief of witnessing such a public confrontation. Cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of Joyce's unraveling for posterity. The credits would eventually roll, but the impact was irreversible. Joyce had revealed herself to be petty, unprofessional, and willing to discard journalistic principles in pursuit of personal vendettas. In contrast, Nicole had maintained her composure, projecting strength and dignity even under the most vicious and personal attacks. Every word she had spoken reinforced her professionalism, her integrity, and her refusal to be dragged into a spectacle driven by bitterness rather than inquiry. Nicole's exit left a stark contrast in the studio. The tension hung thick in the air as everyone processed the fallout. Joyce, now red-faced and visibly rattled, had exposed her own motives, and her credibility suffered in real time. The audience and crew alike witnessed the stark difference between genuine professionalism and a manufactured performance of authority. Nicole's ability to walk away with dignity while Joyce flailed in frustration underscored the lessons of the encounter. One woman had used the platform to attack, misrepresent, and provoke. The other had used it to demonstrate restraint, clarity, and self-respect in the face of unrelenting provocation. The aftermath was a clear and undeniable display of character and integrity, leaving a lasting impression on viewers both in the studio and at home. Every gesture, every word, and every expression during those final moments reinforced the broader message. Professionalism is measured not by the ability to attack, but by the ability to rise above attacks and maintain one's principles under pressure. The cameras captured a tableau of humiliation and resilience, the contrast between petty malice and dignified composure permanently etched into the memory of all who watched. Nicole's departure was decisive and symbolic. She had made a statement without needing to raise her voice further, without needing to defend herself against every false accusation. Her actions spoke louder than any words Joyce could have thrown. The scene left an indelible mark on the studio, the hosts, and the audience, serving as a testament to the power of integrity in the face of relentless hostility. The studio fell silent after Nicole left. Joyce remained visibly shaken and at a loss, the weight of her own miscalculation pressing down on her. The cameras kept rolling, documenting every moment, preserving the stark contrast between professional conduct and personal vendetta for all time. Nicole's calm exit stood in stark opposition to the chaos she left behind, leaving a lasting example of grace under pressure and the enduring strength of genuine professionalism.